Michele Roberts was elected executive director of the NBA Players Association 5 years ago. Roberts winning the job was notable because she was the first woman to hold that title, not just in basketball, but in any major U.S. sport. It was notable because she was replacing Billy Hunter, who'd been ousted in something of a coup and accused of unethical behavior. But most of all, it was notable because of what Roberts said in front of a room of 100 or so players back when she was campaigning for the job. Here's the quote. "My past is littered with the bones of men who were foolish enough to think I was someone they could sleep on." I mean, come on. Just once in my life, I would like to say something that eloquent and badass, even just to the cashier at the grocery checkout, much less in some big key life moment like Roberts did. That line would indeed help her get the players' vote, and in the years since, she's shown just how good a decision that was. Regardless of your feelings on whether the union misplayed cap smoothing back in 2016, it is inarguable that Roberts has steered the PA back to respectability, as she's helped foster an NBA culture where players are empowered like never before. And just this week, Roberts is coming out firing again, fiercely protective of that culture in an interview with the undefeated's Mark Spears. Roberts railed against what she called a double standard over how players like, say, Anthony Davis are viewed as franchise ruiners when they ask for a trade, but how franchises are viewed as just trying to improve when they trade a player mid-contract, like the Rockets did to Chris Paul this summer. The article notes how CP had signed a 4-year, $160 million deal just the summer before, positioning him as one of the long-term centerpieces of a title contender. How he picked up and moved his whole family to Houston, bought property, got his kids entrenched in schools, only to be dealt 12 months later to a rebuilding Thunder team that's not even projected to make the playoffs. Or how Blake Griffin was told he'd be a Clipper for life, and then life turned out to be roughly 7 months before he was dealt to Detroit. Roberts said she believes that some fans and team owners continue to view players as property, and also told Spears she's worried about the growing backlash against player empowerment. I have to figure all these comments were very purposely timed. Right now in New York City, the NBA's Board of Governors is meeting 11 blocks north of Roberts' office, and they're considering instituting a new wave of tampering rules that are, at least in part, designed to return some control to teams who clearly came out of the summer feeling they'd lost it. I mean, one of the new proposed rules prohibits players from inducing players under contract to request trades, which is, of course, a direct shot at the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George situation, and also feels completely unenforceable. Still, I can connect the dots and see why the attempt is being made. It feels like every day, right? We are constantly renegotiating where the line is, as we ask both teams and players to make smart, long-term decisions that involve multi-million-dollar investments, while also being completely vulnerable to those plans going up in smoke on someone else's whim. And maybe there isn't an answer on how to make everyone feel better here. You know that famous line, a good compromise is when both sides are unhappy? Or maybe over the next few years, we will see the lines dramatically shifting once again. All I know is that Michele Roberts is going to keep trying to push things the players' way. And if anyone ever really was sleeping on her, they're not anymore. All right, so Richard, do you think you have lived through many eras of the NBA? You did not have Michele Roberts on your side for most of your player era. I saw your eyes, by the way, when I said the name Billy Hunter. Do you think that the balance of power between players and owners is fair right now?
I do. I think you brought up a lot of points, right? You can talk about guys getting traded, right after they're being made to be the face of a franchise. Blake Griffin, he gets traded to Detroit, and now players around the league have to worry if they're getting signed to a long-term contract just to get traded. We talked about D'Angelo Russell this year. Is he just a piece? Now, yes, guys get the money, and so fans are never really sympathetic to them, but you have to understand all the things that go into it. And so I think Michele Roberts is doing a great job of allowing players to have similar control as ownership, which they should. That does make it very, very difficult for teams to build, franchises and to have that continuity within your community. But, that comes with it.
I mean, my thing, though, here is that NBA franchises have raised in value 1,100% since 1996. And while player salaries certainly have gone up and they're able to, enjoy the fruits of their labor, they are not true partners here. And as long as there's no equity that they are receiving for them being the product, the NBA players are why people around the world tune in, not because of the owners. I don't think there'll ever be a fair balance here. And I don't know if there's a right way to address that or an easy way to address that, I should say. But there is still inequity here, and I'm always going to side with the players over the owners.
I mean, Richard, do you think, we saw the new set of rules that they're debating right now, and I believe they're supposed to vote tomorrow. You laughing at yourself?
Good luck with that. Because you have to understand, there's going to be owners that always feel slighted. There's going to be owners that are like, hey, this worked out in our favor this time. So it's a very, very difficult thing, and you can't just put rules there that can't really and truly be enforced. That's the issue. Yes, it sounds good, it looks good, it will calm people down, but this is a rule that can't be enforced. You can't have players that are talking to players. I don't think that Kawhi forced Paul George to ask for a trade. I think Paul George might have had enough, and these were players that he wanted to play with. And then if the Clippers were able to go get this individual and give up whatever they needed to, then I think that was going to bring Kawhi Leonard. I don't think Kawhi forced Paul George out of Oklahoma City. I think that's false.
And no one wants Big Brother. No one wants police state. No one wants the players' cell phones being monitored. And certainly the owners don't want their cell phones being monitored. Well, because if the rule is that no player can induce another player to request a trade, what can they do to actually enforce it?
Do you know how many cell phone NBA players have?
Why do you tell us, Richard? Which is the pocket you keep in?
There's like 9 of them. It's like, dude. But you can't enforce that, and you're right. It becomes something that, you look at the NFL and how Goodell is kind of, the judge, jury, and executioner in that. And that doesn't go well, right? You got owners that are upset. You got players that are upset. There's just this tension that goes on in the NFL that the NBA has been very fortunate to avoid. And if you start putting everyone in that position where you're under scrutiny, everything that you're doing, all of a sudden, all this 1,100% that has gone up since '97, that's going to start to change.
Well, look, Adam Silver has always taken a different approach, right? He is trying to be more collaborative with players, and we've seen that. And Michele Roberts has been a staunch advocate of the players, but also collaborative with Adam Silver. I'm interested to see how this goes, as clearly it's a hugely forward-pressing issue. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.